Welcome to episode number 077 of Something Else with Arya and Not KJ. Feast your ear holes on this week's episode as we take a look at Mid-South Wrestling from February 5th, 1983. My name is Arya, and welcome to the show. So, as the episode number would indicate, we've been doing this show for 77 episodes, which is a week away from a year and a half worth of shows. Now, we've made jokes over the years that this is the worst timed wrestling podcast ever, in which, typically the day after I record these shows or the day of, like the day that it drops, there'll be big news in the wrestling world that drops, which turns out, to me being the one wrestling podcast not discussing that, which, has its positives and its negatives, let's be honest here, because I don't know about the rest of y'all, but there's only so many fucking podcasts I can listen to talking about the same piece of news or reviewing Raw or whatever else, you know, and that might also explain why they all get a lot more views than I do. Go figure. But anyway, so this week, apparently fate was on my side a little bit this week because, I was going to record the show Sunday morning. And then I'm like, I was gonna open the show Sunday morning and congratulate the Bills on beating the Chiefs. Well, I didn't do it Sunday morning. And then I'm like, you know what? Monday night, when I get home from work, Monday night, do the show. So this way I got a few days to kill. I don't have to be rushing Wednesday night and trying to get it done before going to sleep. And it didn't end up happening. And so this morning, because I'm recording this on Tuesday night, this morning it was announced that Monday Night Raw is going to Netflix. And so I'm going to share my opinion on that here in a minute. I'm also going to talk about the Bills, but I'm going to wait towards the end of the show because I'm going to wrap it into Weird News of the Week. But so Raw is going to Netflix for allegedly 10 years for $5 billion. So apparently only the first 5 years are guaranteed at $500 million per year. And then Netflix essentially has 10 years worth of options to extend it. So this could be a 15-year deal. I I could be 55 years old by the time it's time for Raw to change networks again. I could also be 45, I could be 50, and if Netflix crashes and burns, it could be 41. But, odds are at least one of those things ain't happening. I think, I don't know, like this is really weird. And I get that, I'm at that point where I'm not super old to where I ignore all streaming content. Hell, I'm one of those people that cut the cord. I do all my TV, streaming. So I'm not adverse to streaming. However, I don't I don't think this is the greatest idea. And maybe just the fact that they're making so much money to do it will make up for that. But ultimately, I don't know. It's like if it were me, and obviously it's not me, but if it were me, I would have taken a little bit less money and stayed on traditional cable. And I know that there are many reasons for it. They promised the shareholders that they were going to get a 50% increase. And maybe they weren't getting that level of increase from USA or by FX or by Warner Brothers Discovery or whomever else was in the negotiations. And this way, hey, they gave the shareholders exactly what they wanted. But my thought is, I don't know. It's like the theory is that with it being on a streaming platform, more people will watch it than ever. If you look at Peacock, more people watch these, premium live events, the pay-per-views, than ever. And that, admittedly, assuredly, that's true because more people. This is where the WWE Network failed to an extent because the WWE Network was just wrestling, and there's no amount of anything else you could have put on there that made people subscribe who weren't wrestling fans. And that's why you only ended up with a million and a half people worldwide subscribing, while something like Peacock, has tens and hundreds of millions of subscribers. Same with Netflix. And however, at the end of the day, like I have, a lot of friends who are not wrestling fans who are subscribed to Peacock, who are subscribed to Netflix. And guarantee you, I guarantee you, these friends of mine who aren't wrestling fans aren't going to suddenly watch WrestleMania because it's on Peacock. No, they're going to watch something else. They're not going to watch Raw because, oh, look, Netflix is doing Monday Night Raw now. I'm going to watch that. They're not going to. Like, I don't know. I think they have a chance to get more people to sample it than before. But at the end of the day, you're not making any new fans, in my opinion, because they're not going to go out of their way to go watch pro wrestling now that it's on Netflix versus when it was on the USA Network. And I could be sitting here in 2 years' time if I'm still doing this podcast in 2 years. And hey, if I get through the project I'm going to do next year, that might be a big what if. But I might be sitting in 2 years being like, oh my God, I was wrong. 10 million people are watching Raw and it crossed over. So now 6 million people are watching SmackDown on USA every week. It's a fucking boon. And this is all came out of Netflix. But, I think we all know that that's not going to happen. Now, the other thing that I haven't seen anyone bring up yet, Netflix has only dabbled in live events. Like they've had a few comedy specials. I think they had a golf thing already, but they're not, they're not big on live broadcasting events. They're, hey, let's drop 100 episodes of something on here for you to watch. What's the streaming going to be like? Peacock just got ripped over the coals for a horrible job doing an NFL playoff game. And it's Peacock. They do live sporting events all the time, or they do live events all the time. I know this because I was watching soccer on there a few weeks ago, of all things. But, Netflix, like if I'm WWE, I would have made it as part of the contract that in the next year, in the next 12 months, they need to do more live shows, even if just as an experiment. They need to do live events, live sports to show that they can do it. Because my thought is come January 2025, if like, I don't know, I'm seeing people giving it a one shot thing to watch it live. And if it doesn't work out, well, you know, they're not going to be getting these giant live numbers. Maybe they don't care about the live numbers. Maybe it's just, you know, the 24-hour numbers that will really succeed at. Who knows? But they need to work and make sure that their live streaming capabilities are up to snuff. Because you know what? For all the crap you might give Peacock and NBC Universal, I have never had an issue watching anything. Like my issues have been that they're crappy commercials and all the ads that they drop in there. That's my only issue. They have flawless streaming. I've never had a single buffering issue. And I'm sure as I'm saying this, there'll be 100 people saying, hey, I had buffering issues during this show and that show over there. Well, I didn't. And I'm someone who had issues with WWE Network from day one, pretty much to the end with their horrible buffering at times. So like I said, we have 11 months. Maybe I'll be proven wrong. Maybe this Netflix deal will not just be a great for the bottom line of the company, but for the company's popularity. And it's interesting moving forward because NXT is going to the CW for a few years. SmackDown's going to USA for years. Can you imagine what if, because they're not guaranteed to have Raw on Mondays. They could move it to another night. So what if USA, who's had wrestling on Mondays for all but 5 years in the past 30 years, what if they go, hey, let's put this shit on Monday nights. Let's put SmackDown on Monday nights. Can you imagine that? That could be an interesting thing there. Now, by the way, I usually get this out of the way at first, but then I just started ranting and raving about Raw. Um, this is a one-person operation. It's me, EE, all me. And I thank everybody for listening to this anytime you listen to it. And I do ask if you do wish to support me without paying an extra penny, please consider using our Amazon referral link, which is tinyurl.com/something else Amazon. You use Amazon like normal. You do not pay an extra penny for doing this. However, I get a very small kickback, which helps me pay for upgrades and the admittedly small amount that I have to pay to produce this here show. That again is tinyurl.com/something else Amazon. If you aren't already listening there, you can also check out this show on tinyurl.com/something else YouTube. It also is the host of my occasional special shows. Now, you might recall last year, for those long-term listeners of this show, I did episodes doing live recaps of both the men's and women's Royal Rumbles. I can tell you that as of Tuesday, January 23rd, I have zero plans on actually doing that this year. But then again, if you'd have asked me this a year ago, I would have told you the same thing about last year, which actually, to tell you something, doing that was so much fun. It actually led to me doing the Smoky Mountain rewatch along project, which of course ended up not being exactly that. But yeah. By the way, I did attempt once to do a show, an episode of Smoky Mountain Wrestling with no preparation and just reviewing it as it happened. And, it was such an epic failure. And I deleted it so it doesn't exist. So in case anyone ever wants to hear how bad that was, it just doesn't exist. But anywho, speaking of things that do exist, we're going to talk about Mid-South Wrestling from February 5th, 1983, from the Auschwitz Boys Club in Shreveport, Louisiana. We have some news. We've been talking about the North American champion the last few weeks. Stagger Lee has been no-showing his title defenses against Ted DiBiase. Ted DiBiase's pissed off. The Junkyard Dog is back in town now that his suspension's up. What a coincidence. And let's go to Boyd Pierce and Bill Watts, who are at the desk, and they got the North American title. Let's see what the hell that's all about.
Edition of Mid-South Wrestling Television Network. I'm your host, Boyd Pierce, matchmaker Grizzly Smith with another outstanding card. You'll see Hacksaw Jim Duggan in action. Also, Kamala, the Ugandan warrior, is here. Mr. USA, Tony Atlas, in the ring against Kelly Kaniski. Andre the Giant, the eighth wonder of the world, versus not one but two big men in a handicap tag team battle. And tag team action sees the Junkyard Dog back to join forces with Mr. Wrestling number 2. The man who'll tell you about it with the expert description, our guest commentator, Cowboy Bill Watts.
Well, thank you, Boyd. It should be an exciting evening. And, of course, we've just received, very mysteriously, the North American title back. Matchmaker Grizzly Smith said he received it by registered mail. No explanation, no Stagger Lee. The Junkyard Dog has attempted to take Stagger Lee's place and has taken his place in some areas, and Stagger Lee, there's no comment from him. But the North American title has been returned, which puts Mid-South in a very awkward and unusual position, because this is one of the most prestigious and valuable belts in wrestling, and apparently has been abandoned. And with Mid-South and Charlie Lay are taking up, and they will come up with a solution. A lot of rumors are flying. There's a rumor, I don't know, that Ted DiBiase claims that the Junkyard Dog is saying that he told Stagger Lee's probation officer, and Stagger Lee's cooling his heels somewhere. I don't know, but we do know this: the Junkyard Dog is back. He's officially here. He's been appearing in the Mid-South area. He's been welcomed with tremendous acclaim. As a matter of fact, Steve Tingley has developed a full-color album on the Junkyard Dog. It's in the arenas around the Mid-South area, and it's tremendous. I looked at it. My kids love it. Color pictures all the way through, some of the best action shots I've ever seen, and I know people will be looking for this in the different arenas. Then today, let's get right to the action. As you said, in the ring, Tim Horner and Sonny Rogers. Let's go to Reeser Bowden.
All right, so another outstanding card put together by Grizzly Smith, including Andre the Giant in a handicap tag team match against two very, very large men. So we'll see how that progresses here. Junkyard Dog is back in the ring in action, teaming with Mr. Wrestling 2. Uh, and then we get the big news. The North American title has been returned to Mid-South. Stagger Lee sent it via certified mail. He has disappeared. He's left the Mid-South region. He's abandoned the championship. And the rumor is that Ted DiBiase called Stagger Lee's probation officer to go after him. Now, I think the more funny story here isn't so much, that that's how they wrote Stagger Lee out. But, what exactly did Stagger Lee do that led to him eventually being on probation? And why is he violating his probation? Is he on violation because he keeps fleeing the state to go to other states? A lot of probation, I don't speak from experience. However, if you have a job that requires you to move around a little bit, usually you are able to get an exception in order to go to work. But maybe that's what he was doing. Maybe he didn't have permission to be going to Mississippi and Texas and everywhere else that Mid-South goes to. All right. So first match, it is Tim Horner. Yes, that Tim Horner versus Sonny Rogers. Horner is in your corner, and I guess now he's getting a push as an opening card guy. As he has had some enhancement matches lately. Now we do have an update on good old Dr. Death Steve Williams, who we had seen here last summer in his first matches as a pro. He's got an update here. And then he's also going to be talking about a very famous match from another territory from around this time. Let's go to Bill right now.
Has reported to camp in the new United States Football League for the New Jersey Generals, and they've drafted him #1 as a defensive middle guard. I'd hate to be a center looking across the line. Steve has really captured everybody's attention in the short time in pro wrestling. He's made everybody respect him. Also, the wrestling world abuzz with Kerry Von Erich in his match with Ric Flair for the North American title, or excuse me, not the North American, the National Wrestling Alliance title, in which Michael Hayes of the fabulous Freebirds reverted true to form and cost Kerry Von Erich that title. And a big feud in the Texas area with the Von Erich family and the Freebirds. And of course, a lot of people think people have changes of heart. I find that unless there's something a lot stronger than man-made, unless it's some kind of a spiritual change, that people just don't change their heart. And the Freebirds, certainly, Michael Hayes has always been a selfish, self-centered, arrogant, extremely arrogant individual that controls the mind of Terry Gordy, a big, giant athlete, just a weak man that has no leadership ability of his own, and, of course, Buddy Roberts, which is a man that's always sought the easiest way in life. But they're against the Von Erichs that has a great leadership ability, and their father, Fritz Von Erich, 3 of the boys wrestling pro already, Kerry, Kevin, and David. They may have bit off more than they can chew.
Okay. So he goes a little off there at the end talking about Michael Hayes. Now, in the interest of fairness, it was just a few years ago when Michael Hayes was in Mid-South and causing chaos. And that was obviously before we started watching. But the biggest crowd that Mid-South ever did in the Superdome was Michael Hayes versus the Junkyard Dog when they blinded Dog. And the story was that that he had blinded the dog right when the dog's daughter was born, and so he wasn't able to, see his daughter and hold his daughter. Now thanks to that awful Michael Hayes blinding him. What an awful, awful man he is. I do think it's kind of funny that, keep in mind this the difference between, 1983 and 2024. It is February 5th, and we're just now talking about the Kerry Von Erich Ric Flair Christmas night NWA title match in Dallas. And, they're going to talk about it later too. And the funny thing is, it's like, yeah, I know it's a different promotion and all that shit, but it's like, imagine if today, now obviously not WWE, because WWE's not going to ever acknowledge another company unless, it's a very unique situation, we'll say. However, you know, Bryan Danielson wrestled Okada at the Tokyo Dome a few weeks ago. Imagine if AEW never acknowledged that match at all until like 3 weeks from now. Or I guess that might be a bad comparison. What if 3 weeks from now on Impact they acknowledge that match at random and we're talking about it? Because Impact, they do have a relationship with both New Japan and AEW to some extent. However, they're not just going to randomly yammer on about a match in the middle of February that happened at the beginning of January, which I get it's probably still a bad comparison because that might be when they aired on the Access TV show. I'm just rambling. It's hard to make a good real comparison, especially in these days when, the wrestling world is a lot more mixed than it's been in a long time. But yeah. So back to the match. By the way, Tim Horner versus Sonny Rogers is the match that we've been talking about here, or that we haven't been talking about. Sonny Rogers' trunks are at least one size too small. The match was going along just fine, nothing remarkable, until the referee called for a shoot disqualification on Sonny Rogers for using a karate thrust to the throat. And this is one of those times, I don't know, did they not smarten up these referees? Like Rick Ferrer is one of the referees, and he was a jobber, last year. So I'd like to think he's smartened up to wrestling. However, we've seen this a lot where the referees will just call a shoot disqualification and or they'll just like call for the bell and it's like it's not the finish and we will see the wrestlers continue to run their spots. Like here, Tim Horner basically ignored the shoot disqualification and did his entire comeback before Rogers bailed to the outside. I gotta say, it's like it's really weird in that sense. Like, you remember when WWE was doing that? That they were like telling the referees that they have to call these things as a shoot, and like that ended like pretty freaking quickly, if I recall, because they did a TV match, and it's like, and I think the only reason I remember this because it was involved who was involved. It was an ECW match in June of 2007 with Benoit and CM Punk versus the Pope and Monty Brown. And they called for a shoot disqualification at one point. And because that wasn't the finish, they just did what they were going to do to finish the match. And it's like the one time I remember it had happening in WWE. And I think they pretty much stopped with the shoot refereeing at that point. Because, it's a work sport, ladies and gentlemen. I love it. We all love it. You wouldn't be listening to this if you didn't love wrestling. However, we can all agree, it's work. Come on, guys. Louisiana champion Hacksaw Jim Duggan versus Joe Stark. Watts said that you may not agree with Duggan, but he doesn't specify what you may not agree with him about. Watts builds up Duggan versus Dr. Death, and then talks about how Duggan gets offended if you don't pronounce his name correctly. Okay, Bill Waits. Anyway, Stark hit a few drop kicks, ran off the ropes, and got sent right back into the buckles. Duggan won by lifting Stark and throwing him throat first on the top rope. Kamala with Friday and General Skandor Akbar versus Buddy Landell. I guess now that Stagger Lee is gone, Kamala is no longer obsessed with masks to the point that Akbar is no longer giving jobbers money to wear a mask during the matches. They claim that Boudreaux can bench press over 500 pounds, apparently, and Watts predicts that he becomes a big star. Well, he certainly could have been. Unfortunately, Woodrow was his own worst enemy at one point here. And we've talked about that in the past. We'll talk about it again in the future. Anyway, this was only slightly more competitive than the usual Kamala squash, but again, Kamala wins with 2 splashes to the back. Kelly Kiniski versus Tony Atlas. We are just running through matches here, folks, and we're not even halfway through the damn show. They announced that this match has a 10-minute time limit. I cannot imagine this match going the time limit. I also note I cannot imagine how cold it was in the Irish McNeil Boys Club, since every fan is wearing their heavy jackets. Of course, this is Louisiana, so 60 degrees may be cold enough to require everyone to wear a heavy coat indoors. To me, 60 degrees, there's a decent chance I'm wearing shorts. I'm at the very least I wouldn't be wearing a jacket. I'll tell you that. Anyway, Watts is so bored by this match between Tony Atlas and Kelly Kiniski that he is going to explain the finish of the opener and then explain what a disqualification is.
Thinking back to that first match between Tim Horner and Sonny Rogers, it was a disqualification due to Sonny Rogers throwing a karate blow to the throat. There are certain things in the Mid-South area that are automatic disqualifications. If you run your opponent's head into the ring post, into the steel ring post, that's a disqualification. If you intentionally throw them over the top rope, that's a disqualification. That's a judgment call by an official, because oftentimes a guy will get caught with a drop kick and go over the top rope, and that's not being intentionally thrown over the top rope, so it's not a disqualification at that point. If you attack your man after the fall, that is a disqualification. If you hit the referee, that's an automatic disqualification. And also a karate to the throat, or to hit your opponent with a foreign object. These are all automatic disqualifications.
Imagine if instead of saying that's a disqualification, imagine if he was Jasper on The Simpsons and just saying that's a paddling. You throw someone over the top rope, that's a paddling. You hit the referee, that's a paddling. You attack somebody after the bell, that's a paddling. You get the joke. So Tony Atlas is continuing to wrestle Kelly Kiniski here. Atlas holds Kiniski up in a pile driver position, or he holds him in a pile driver position, leaps in the air and lands on his feet, almost as if he was going for a pedigree of sorts. They announced that next week, the Tag Team Championship is on the line. Ted DiBiase and Matt Bourne, your Mid-South Tag Team Champions, going 2-on-2 with apparently the #1 contenders to the belts, Tony Atlas and his partner, Andre the Giant. That is going to be a match. Undoubtedly. I got to tell you, they don't have a tag team division, so they make up for it sometimes with some random ass tag teams. And of all the random ass tag teams, I got to tell you, Tony Atlas and Andre the Giant, that is random, but that could be interesting here. I gotta tell you that. Tony Atlas, obviously we've all seen Tony Atlas. He's a very large man. He's cut. He's got muscles in places where some people don't have places. But we all know he's a very large, very thick man. He uses a flying head scissors, which got 0 reaction. And so he did another one to another 0 reaction. What is with these people? I know they're cold, but Jesus Christ. Anyway, Atlas won with a press slam and big splash. All right, so it's time for our 2-on-1 handicap match. Andre the Giant versus Mike Bond and Tom Ernesto Jr. Last time we had a handicap match, Reeser introduced it in a very Reeser-like manner. Unfortunately, he played it straight this time, so there's no fun audio of Reeser Bowden introducing the handicap match. So we've made fun in the past of Kamala being introduced as 6 foot 8 inches tall when he was no taller than Reeser. Well, Andre was towering over Reeser to an almost comical degree. Like legitimately, like I get it was a little bit, also a little bit of a camera angle, and also Andre standing in the corner where it's a little more, the ring's a little more pronounced in the corner, whereas the middle of the ring where Reeser is, it's a little bit more indented, but still. This was theoretically a tag team match, but Bond and Ernesto just stayed in the ring the whole time. Not that they had much luck anyway. Andre at one point uses a straight punch to the face in the corner and then a standing cravat. We have Andre doing a cravat. Andre was wailing away on Ernesto while Bond was hitting Andre and just being ignored. There's no selling, and then there's just being ignored. And that's what Andre was doing with poor Mike Bond here. Bond and Ernesto did get him down on a double single leg takedown. You might be wondering what a double single leg takedown is. Well, imagine if I went for a single leg takedown on you, and then somebody else was also going for a single leg takedown, but on the other leg. That would be a double single leg takedown. However, Andre pressed them both off on a pin attempt. Andre gave Bond a big boot and then tossed Ernesto off the top rope onto Bond, and then he sat on them for the win. Yes, he literally sat on them. And somehow, despite being Andre the Giant and being 7 foot tall ish and 500 pounds ish, he managed to not pull a Ronnie Garvin and have his nuts in their face. I mean, if anybody is going to be able to do that on accident, I'd give it to Andre because he's so large. But no, Andre did not put, chin nuts on anybody. Go to commercial. We come back, and Bill is back at the desk to talk about next week's tag team title match.
Oh, boy, next week our main event on Mid-South Television Wrestling will be Tony Atlas, Mr. USA, and 7'4", 485-pound Andre the Giant against Ted DiBiase and Matt Bourne for the Mid-South Tag titles. Now, Andre has not been one to be on any championship quest. He says being the Giant is a worldwide championship because he's been in such unusual matches. Most of the time, battle royals or handicap situations. But he has a tremendous friendship for Tony Atlas, and Atlas said he's fed up with the Rat Pack because it seems like whenever you face two of them, there becomes a third with Hacksaw Duggan. We talked to Matt Bourne and Ted DiBiase earlier, and we will show you that interview now. I'm standing between the two co-holders of the Mid-South Tag Team Championship, and next week, right here on Mid-South Wrestling, they have formidable, to say the least, opponents that they're going to defend the Mid-South Tag titles against. None other than the world's strongest man, Mr. USA Tony Atlas, but he will be teamed with the eighth wonder of the world, 7'4", 485-pound Andre the Giant.
That's a raw deal in itself, but before I get to that, Bill Watts, I got something I want to say that has just seemed to drop out of the picture. 2 weeks in a row, Stagger Lee was supposed to defend the North American title against me right here in this ring and failed to show up. By failing to show up, he therefore forfeits the match. By forfeiting the match, he therefore forfeits the North American title. I want my belt. I am the North American champion. I should have been all the time, and I should have it now by forfeiture. And on top of that, Junkyard Dog has started a nasty rumor that I squealed to Stagger Lee's probation officer, causing him to be put back in prison, and he's serving time again. Now, that's the biggest lie I've ever heard. The lie is that there is no Stagger Lee. Stagger Lee is, in fact, the Junkyard Dog, and all you people know that. This is just a big runaround so he can protect himself. Now, on top of all of that, Mid-South is trying to get rid of us. Can you imagine? It's not bad enough. Yeah, we're the Mid-South Tag Team title holders, and everybody can't stand it. Well, that's tough. So now Mid-South is going to go get the strongest man in wrestling, Tony Atlas, and put him with the biggest man that ever walked anywhere, Andre the Giant. Now, if that's not trying to get rid of us, I don't know what is, Bill Watts. But something's going to be done about it, and we'll hang on any way we have to.
All these people out here, Bill Watts, we know that we are the best champions that this Mid-South's ever had, and after we beat them next week, somehow,
We know
some
what
way,
we got to do to keep it.
there's going to be no
We'll
doubt
see it
about
next week. You know, there's a lot of pride and a lot of jealousy among greats in any sport. And oftentimes two superstars don't gel. But we have two superstars that have become legends in their own time. One, Mr. Wrestling 2 from Atlanta, who has come in to dominate the Mid-South. And that other superstar, that man who carries the Mid-South banner wherever he goes, who's been crowned the king of wrestling in Houston, the Junkyard Dog. And these two men team together are awesome, and that chemistry does gel. Let's go to Reeser Bowden.
All right. So they mentioned, basically the shoot that Andre never really wants to be a champion, but because, I mean, even if he was, it would kind of be a bad idea because he wasn't somebody who stayed in a territory. In case you're somehow listening to this and don't really know, Andre didn't stick around very well. Like he was booked out of the WWF offices in New York, but even then, it's like for the most part, he was basically the NWA champion without being the NWA champion. And that's not saying Andre could have been the NWA champion because he couldn't have been. We'll just be nice about that here. Um, and Andre, but in a way, was the NWA champion. He was the touring wrestler, and that people went through Vince Senior, and they'd book weeks on Andre, and they've told the stories about how Vince Senior, when he'd be wanting to take wrestlers from territories, he wouldn't just take them. He would do things like give promoters an extra week of dates or an extra 2 weeks on dates because it always was instant sellouts with Andre all over the world, not even just the country, but all over the freaking world here, folks. And so that's a lot of where that came in here, where Andre, you know, what would him being a champion do more than it already did for him? And really, his drawing power went away once Vince Jr. took over and signed him or brought him in exclusively, or as exclusive as he was going to be, because I think he still did his Japan dates. But you know, yeah, like once he started being in the one territory all the time, it wasn't as big of a draw anymore. Just one of those things here. So they go to the Ted DiBiase promo. Ted DiBiase, by the way, has shaved. I thought when he grew in the beard a few months ago that was the beginning of the Ted DiBiase we all knew and remembered and loved to some degree, at least until him and his family would steal money from the state welfare office. But that's a story for another day. But nope, he shaved again here, and here we are. He talks about the hideous lie that he reported Stagger Lee to his probation officer, and now he's in jail. Because of course, Stagger Lee, there is no Stagger Lee. It's a Junkyard Dog under a mask. And yeah. He talks about how Mid-South wants him and Bourne and Duggan gone, and now they're booking him against, the strongest man in wrestling and the biggest man in wrestling. But they're going to try to find a way to keep the belts next week. Bourne didn't say much, but it was a really good promo there by Ted DiBiase. And speaking of Ted DiBiase and Matt Bourne, the next match is scheduled to be Junkyard Dog and Mr. Wrestling 2 versus Marty Lundy and Don Bass. DiBiase and Bourne came out and said that they wanted to buy the contracts of Lundy and Bass for this match, and Lundy and Bass weren't agreeable, so the four heels went outside the ring for a quick conference, and apparently they reached an agreement because the tag team champions took the match over. So we got Junkyard Dog and Mr. Wrestling 2 versus Mid-South Tag Team Champions Ted DiBiase and Matt Bourne. Oh boy. There's this misnomer that wrestling only got corny and stupid and, broke the rules flagrantly, in the 90s and 2000s, and especially nowadays where it's like no one even believes it's real. It's like I can't tell you whether anyone thought it was real in 1983, but I can tell you that like stuff like this shit that we're about to talk about, I'm not calling it shit, but it's like stuff like this that I'm about to talk about. This, like, I don't even think you would see this like on Raw or Dynamite these days. And if you did, you would never hear the end of it. Just saying. So it's Junkyard Dog and Mr. Wrestling 2 versus Ted DiBiase and Matt Bourne. And this is actually a play on a finish we've seen a few times over the past year or so that we've been doing this. Dog and 2 get the early advantage when Marty Lundy and Don Bass run in to attack the faces. This is not a disqualification. The match kept going in what was essentially a 4-on-2 handicap match. Dog and Mr. Wrestling 2 beat up all four men, and 2 pins Don Bass, and Junkyard Dog pinned Marty Lundy to win the match between Junkyard Dog and Mr. Wrestling 2 versus Ted DiBiase and Matt Bourne. All right, then. So I will say this. It was slightly more exciting than just having the original tag team match. But at the end of the day, it's like that was what it was, right? so the I don't even want to say the tag team champions are on a losing streak going into next week's match, but the tag team champions did not win this match. You could debate they were ever actually in this match, but they definitely did not win it. So up next, Iron Mike Sharp, who is still here, versus Art Cruz. And we're going to go back to Bill Watts, and he's going to talk about amateur wrestling, and specifically someone that we all know, well, most of us know, and becomes a big professional wrestling star.
One man that's adapted tremendously well to American collegiate wrestling is Big John Tenta, the 350-pound heavyweight at Louisiana State University under Coach Larry Shakatana and Lanny Davidson. Fine team. LSU been really come up this year in the ratings. Enjoyed watching them against Oklahoma University. Coach Stan Abel's team led by Mark Schultz, a two-time NCAA national champion and outstanding wrestler of last year's tournament at 177 pounds. And of course, Oklahoma State under Tommy Chesborough. Powerful team led by 400-pound Mitch Shelton at heavyweight. And Kenny Mundy, tremendous athlete at 150.
All right. So he talks about John Tenta, who I know we've talked about this, before. John Tenta is the future earthquake, or shark, avalanche, John Tenta, however you want to refer to him as. But yeah. Now here's where they announced, we talked about the Kerry Von Erich Ric Flair match earlier. Here's where they announced that in 2 weeks, we hope to have highlights of that match from Dallas. And like I said, you gotta love 1983 pro wrestling. That match happened on Christmas, December 25th, for those who somehow don't know when Christmas is. And we may get highlights on February 19th. We also have a promise that if this match does not go to the TV time limit, we're going to have a pre-tape promo with Andre the Giant and Tony Atlas. Personally, in my opinion, that does seem more important than just the average expiration of time match that we're getting here. Now, I mentioned that Iron Mike Sharp is still here. Actually, next week is Sharp's last TV match as a full-timer in Mid-South. He does return for a one-off in July, but this is it. Watt says that next week we hope to find out more about the North American Championship, and Sharp wins with a clothes line. So because Iron Mike Sharp and Art Cruz did not go to the expiration of time, we have time for a promo. So let's go to Bill and Boyd, and they're going to send to the promo and then come back to wrap it up.
Victory, and of course Mike Sharp has had some tough opponents recently that's very formidable. The one that's the talk of the wrestling world, Kamala, the Ugandan warrior. And next week right here on Mid-South Wrestling, though, we have a dynamite event for you. We have Tony Atlas and Andre the Giant against DiBiase and Bourne. Let's listen to Tony Atlas and Andre the Giant. Standing here between the team that will go for the Mid-South Tag Team titles next week right here on television. The most formidable team I've ever seen. Certainly the one that DiBiase and Bourne are worrying about right now. 7'4", 485-pound Andre the Giant.
Thank you. And I'm very happy to be there. And I always said I don't want to be a champion. But when Tony Atlas asked me to be a team up with them to go for the Mid-South Tag Team Championship, I was happy to sign that contract because I'm a good friend with Tony, and I'm going to do all my best. And I know those guys are the best because they're the champion, but they have to prove it. Who is the best, our team or their team?
Well, Tony, it looks like you may have set an ambush.
Yes, sir. You know that Rat Pack, every time you get a tag team partner, there's always one of them comes slipping out. If you wrestling Matt Bourne or Ted DiBiase, that Dugan comes slipping out. If you wrestle Dugan and Ted DiBiase, however it be one slip out. But I got Andre the Giant here. He be just as big and just as powerful as Foreman. And together we're going to get the job done.
Next week, right here on Mid-South. Well, Boyd Pierce, next week, I know everybody will want to be in their chairs early for Mid-South. We appreciate you inviting us into your living rooms again today. Again, Stagger Lee has disappeared. The North American title has been sent back to Grizzly Smith. That will be answered. Possibly next week we'll have some answers, but we will have a fantastic tag team battle.
It has to be a battle. The championship will be on the line in a sanctioned match. Mr. USA Tony Atlas and his partner, H1 to the world, Andre the Giant, versus the champions Ted DiBiase and Matt Bourne. Until next week, for our guest commentator, Bill Watts, I'm your host, Boyd Pierce, and thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, for watching us. You're the reason the ratings are so strong. You're the reason that matchmaker Grizzly Smith can spend the money to bring them to you. Thanks for watching, and good evening.
Okay. So we get the promo with Atlas and Andre. They don't really say much, but the most notable thing, and if you check out our show on YouTube, we post the episode of Mid-South Wrestling at the end, so you could go back and watch this yourself. But, Andre is in, he has his handicap match early on, and he towers over Reeser. We made a comment about it. Now, in the WWF, Vince McMahon, who, I doubt he would ever allow this to happen nowadays, that his fucking ego went massive at some point. I mean, more massive than it was here. Anyway, it's like, if you ever watched Andre in the WWF, like Vince looked like a freaking little person compared to Andre, because, Vince wouldn't wear his shoes. Andre would stand on a box. Basically, they do everything they could to really pronounce how much bigger Andre was than the average human being. Bill fucking Watts, who, again, he's a tall man. He's like 6'4", 6'5" himself. And then he's wearing his stupid ass cowboy hat. And so Andre, who's a legit like 6'10", he doesn't look that much fucking bigger than Cowboy Bill Watts with his stupid ass cowboy hat. And it's like, what the fuck, dude? Anyway, Andre just says he's happy to team with Tony Atlas to try to become tag team champion. And Watts ends the show by recapping what's going on. And then Reeser has like 30 seconds to kill at the end. So that's it for Mid-South Wrestling this week. I gotta say, it wasn't a bad episode. I'd even say it was a good episode. Just you watch and you don't think anything of note really happened. I mean, we had Junkyard Dog back. The North American title is apparently vacated, and we're gonna see next week what they do with it. In theory, Ted DiBiase, your heel, he has a point. He had 2 scheduled matches that the champion no-showed. It's a forfeit. The title should be sent to him, but it's not. And so we're going to see what happens there. Are they going to give the title to DiBiase next week? Do they do some sort of match for the belt? What's going to happen? The Superdome show's around the corner. It's coming up in April. We'll see what happens, I guess. So before we go, all right. So we've talked about it. I'm a huge Buffalo Bills fan. And there is something just mind-numbingly crazy about watching the Buffalo Bills lose a game because of a missed field goal. But I'll tell you what, at the end of the day, and I'll talk about Josh Allen here in a minute, but at the end of the day, we were 6-6. We were 6-6 going into week 14. We were 3 games out of the division spot. We were like the 11th seed, either 10 or 11, and it wasn't even like funny, like how much shit had to go our way to end the season the way it did. We won the last 5 fucking games to finish 11-6. We won the fucking division. We were the 2 seed. This never should have we shouldn't have made it this far, but we did. By some sheer dumb luck, we made it this far. And we made it to the division round where we hosted a division round playoff game against Kansas City that, yes, at the end of the day, we blew. And we made a couple dumb plays, and it doesn't help at all that Josh Allen, his instincts suck. He is absurdly talented. He's got more talent in his pinky than I have ever had in my entire body. It's like, I could not dream of being, half the athlete that Josh Allen is. However, at the end of the day, there were a few moments in that game. And even at the end, like, when it was 2nd and 10, we were on like the 30, 35-yard line, whatever it was. And it was the play where he goes for the end zone and late in the fourth quarter, and they run into him. The defensive back pushed the offensive lineman into him, and the ball just went kaput. It's like there was a fucking receiver wide the fuck open, 8-9 yards down. We would have had the first down. Worst case scenario would have been like 3rd and 2, 3rd and 1, and we could have done a tush push to get the first down. And the fact is, there were 2 fucking minutes left in the game. So even if like that play had worked and we got a touchdown, we went to 4 points, it would have left Kansas State with like a minute 52, a minute 53. And as we've learned in the past, that is way too much fucking time to let Patrick Mahomes have to beat us. No doubt. We probably would have still lost because Patrick Mahomes probably would have ran the field and beat us in the end. And I'm being dead on, honest with that one. And however, it's like, and that drive was what drove me fucking crazy because we did everything right on that last drive of ours. It's like, it went like, it was like 16 or 15 plays. It went like over 8 minutes. And we were only at the 30. Literally, it would not have been difficult to basically run it down and essentially cross the goal line as the clock struck 000. And I'm not saying like, oh, it would have been easy, but I'm saying that like we fucking blew that. And I don't blame Tyler Bass. It's like, I know a lot of there unfortunately, like, this is the world. It's like a lot of people, Tyler Bass had to deactivate his social media accounts because some assholes were sending him death threats over that. But this is what leads us into weird news of the week. UPI.com, Alex Butler is the person writing this one. Fans console Bills kicker Tyler Bass for playoff miss by funding cat rescue. Dollars are flying into an upstate New York cat rescue shelter as football fans continue to console Tyler Bass after he missed a crucial field goal, which led to the Buffalo Bills' exit from the NFL playoffs. 10 Lives Club, a no-kill cat rescue shelter based in Buffalo, said it received more than $25,000 in donations on Monday and a total of $90,000 by Tuesday afternoon. Bass missed the kick wide right with less than 2 minutes remaining in the 27-24 loss to the Kansas City Chiefs on Sunday in Orchard Park, New York. The Bills kicker, a brand ambassador for 10 Lives Club, dropped his chin into his jersey collar and ducked his head in dejection while walking off the field after the loss. And they go on to mention about how he had to deactivate his accounts. 10 Lives Club issued a statement of support for the Bills kicker Monday night. We stand with Tyler Bass, 10 Lives Club wrote on Instagram and Facebook. Don't bully our friend. We just heard the terrible news that Tyler Bass is receiving threats after the game, and our phones are ringing off the hook from people who want to donate $22 to 10 Lives Club in Tyler's name. Tyler doesn't deserve any of the hate he's receiving. He's an excellent football player and even better person who took the time to help our organization and rescue cats last year. Leave our friend alone. And this is one of those things that's like, I love the Bills, always love the Bills. I'm going to continue loving the Bills. And it's like, being a Bills fan, it's the thrill of victory, the agony of defeat. It's triumph and heartbreak. And yeah, there are a few assholes out there who are going to go and threaten Tyler Bass because he missed a field goal. But the rest of that article really tells you a lot of what the Bills Mafia is. Because, like, we stand up, we stand for community, and we go and do what we can and we help out. And, Tyler, I hope Tyler's back next year. I hope he's able to shake this off. And, we can pull things together next year because, the Bills team, the last 6-7 weeks of this season, even going back to that Eagles game that we lost, this team is a Super Bowl winning team. Hopefully we can put it together next year. And hopefully Tyler Bass is part of that and is able to, shake this off and come back stronger than ever. But that's going to do it for this week. We went a little bit longer than we usually go. We went almost an hour, but hope you all enjoyed listening to this. We're going to end the show the same way we like to end the show every week here. As soon as this song plays, there we go. So I want to thank everybody for listening, and we'll talk to you again in 7 days.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of Mid-South Wrestling Television Network. I'm your host, Boyd Pierce, matchmaker Grizzly Smith, with another outstanding card. You'll see Hacksaw Jim Duggan in action. Also, Kamala, the Ugandan warrior, is here. Mr. USA, Tony Atlas, in the ring against Kelly Kaniski. Andre the Giant, the 8th wonder of the world, versus not one but two big men in a handicap tag team battle. And tag team action sees the Junkyard Dog back to join forces with Mr. Wrestling number 2. The man that'll tell you about it with the expert description, our guest commentator, Cowboy Bill Watts.
Well, thank you, Boyd. It should be an exciting evening. And, of course, we have just received, very mysteriously, the North American title back. Matchmaker Grizzly Smith said he received it by registered mail. No explanation, no Stagger Lee. The Junkyard Dog has attempted to take Stagger Lee's place and has taken his place in some areas, and Stagger Lee, there's no comment from him. But the North American title has been returned, which puts Mid-South in a very awkward and unusual position, because this is one of the most prestigious and valuable belts in wrestling, and apparently has been abandoned. And with Mid-South and Charlie Lay are taking up, and they will come up with a solution. A lot of rumors are flying. There's a rumor, I don't know, that Ted DiBiase claims that the Junkyard Dog is saying that he told Stagger Lee's probation officer, and Stagger Lee's cooling his heels somewhere. I don't know, but we do know this: the Junkyard Dog is back. He's officially here. He's been appearing in the Mid-South area. He's been welcomed with tremendous acclaim. As a matter of fact, Steve Tingley has developed a full-color album on the Junkyard Dog. It's in the arenas around the Mid-South area, and it's tremendous. I looked at it. My kids love it. Color pictures all the way through, some of the best action shots I've ever seen, and I know people will be looking for this in the different arenas. Then today, let's get right to the action. As you said, in the ring, Tim Horner and Sonny Rogers. Let's go to Reeser Bowden.
This event is for one fall with a 10-minute time limit. In the red corner at 238 pounds from Vancouver, British Columbia, Sonny Rogers. And in the blue corner at 222 pounds from Knoxville, Tennessee, Tim Horner.
And the cheers for the psychedelic-clad Sonny Rogers, and the cheers being reserved for the introduction of Tim Horner. Alfred Neely, the referee in the ring, giving the instructions. Here's the bell, and here's Bill.
Boy, this should be a great match. I haven't seen Sonny Rogers for several years, Canadian-born. Tim Horner, a youngster with a lot of heart, a lot of quickness that has really captivated the fans with his efforts against some of the tremendously large guys in Mid-South. It looks like now Grizzly Smith has got him against somebody that he matches in stature and size. And they're mixing it up, because on television, the men are really striving to gain a victory, because that victory goes out to the Mid-South Television Network, which is the #1 wrestling show in the nation as far as viewing audience per capita. It's just amazing, and these guys love to get on here and show their ability, because they know the promoters are looking in, and that's how they get asked to appear on their cards. Set out, Granby roll. Showed a little amateur background there. Japanese arm drags, the Greco-Roman move. Steve Dr. Death Williams has reported to camp in the new United States Football League for the New Jersey Generals, and they've drafted him #1 as a defensive middle guard. I'd hate to be a center looking across the line. Steve has really captured everybody's attention in the short time in pro wrestling. He's made everybody respect him. Also, the wrestling world abuzz with Kerry Von Erich in his match with Ric Flair for the North American title, or excuse me, not the North American, the National Wrestling Alliance title, in which Michael Hayes of the fabulous Freebirds reverted true to form and cost Kerry Von Erich that title. And a big feud in the Texas area with the Von Erich family and the Freebirds. And of course, you know, a lot of people think people have changes of heart. I find that unless there's something a lot stronger than man-made, unless it's some kind of a spiritual change, that people just don't change their heart. And the Freebirds, certainly, Michael Hayes has always been a selfish, self-centered, arrogant, extremely arrogant individual that controls the mind of Terry Gordy, a big, giant athlete, just a weak man that has no leadership ability of his own, and, of course, Buddy Roberts, which is a man that's always sought the easiest way in life. But they're against the Von Erichs that has a great leadership ability, and their father, Fritz Von Erich, 3 of the boys wrestling pro already, Kerry, Kevin, and David. They may have bit off more than they can chew. Great action out here. Tim Horner and Sonny Rogers, and I know everybody will be looking forward to Andre the Giant, 7'4", 485 against 2 men. And the Junkyard Dog and Mr. Wrestling 2 team up. Tony Atlas against Kelly Kiniski. Buddy Landell will face the awesome Kamala, the Ugandan warrior. A man, by the way, who in one-on-one confrontations with Andre the Giant. What a battle that's been. That has been a battle of monsters. And Andre the Giant and Kamala have just met. There's been no clear-cut decision. Promoters all over the world are asking for that match. We've never seen one individual that could even stand in against Andre. And Kamala, being that he's savage, plus being with the help of his man Friday and the devious, vicious, unscrupulous, deep-pocketed Skandar Akbar. Look. Neely calling for a disqualification there, apparently. Sonny Rogers not stopping. Apparently a karate thrust. Boyd, from our angle of the monitor, I couldn't tell. But Ralph Neely right there, and a karate thrust to the throat is illegal. But Tim Horner is just carrying right on and giving Sonny Rogers all he wants.
Alfred Neely continues to call for the bell.
Well, sometimes if the bell doesn't stop you, the man in the ring has to, and Tim Horner has just had Sonny Rogers bail out, Boyd.
And he made the sign when he raised the hand with the karate as the reason for the disqualification. We'll be back with more action after this word from Mid-South Wrestling.
This is a non-title event for one fall with a 10-minute time limit. In the red corner at 270 pounds from New York City, the Louisiana heavyweight champion, Hacksaw Duggan. And in the blue corner at 223 pounds from Jonesboro, Arkansas, Joe Stark.
This event, one fall, 10-minute time limit. Joe Stark against the spearing, foot-stomping Louisiana heavyweight champion, Hacksaw Jim Duggan.
Well, I'll tell you, a lot of people don't agree with Hacksaw Duggan, but you got to respect him. He is a tough, rugged man, a guy who has no personal regard for his own safety. Former All-American at SMU, who everybody watched their football fortunes this year. They were right on top. Played Canadian football, also played for the Atlanta Falcons. A man known for his illegal spear. More known for just being a rough, rugged guy that just seems to be cooking at high boil all the time. He just is always, he's ready to go. You don't have to send him an engraved invitation for a fight. He'll fight you. He's turned a few of the drinking establishments throughout the Mid-South area into parking lots, from what I understand. I imagine he and Redneck Dick Murdoch, who's got quite a reputation in that situation, would be a rugged combination and a rough, rugged match. When you think of matchups, you think of a Murdoch against him or Tony Atlas, or, of course, Chavo Guerrero upset the guy right here on TV, and it's been stuck in his craw ever since. He's vowed to get Chavo Guerrero. Chavo, the man who finally completely demoralized gorgeous Gino Hernandez, and nobody's heard from Gino in the wrestling world since. Another man I'd like to have seen against Hacksaw is Dr. Death Steve Williams. Even though Dr. Death was still a rookie in wrestling, he'd come on so fast that I think it would have been a great match. Dugan, you spell it with 2 G's, and he gets a little insulted if you don't pronounce it right. Proud of his Yankee heritage. Man was a New York State high school wrestling champion. Oh, look at that awesome power. You see how he just picked Joe Stark up and just breaking his back right across the knee. Dugan is he's just a brawler, a young Dick the Bruiser type. Of course, and he and Tony Atlas, you know, it's amazing what chemistry there is sometimes that create these situations with people. And Hacksaw Dugan has just seemed to single out Tony Atlas. He's degraded him and insulted him. Tony, a great athlete with a lot of tremendous power reserve. Tony can make more mistakes than the average guy because he's got that power reserve to get out. But against Hacksaw Dugan, you've got really had some battles with them that just been unbelievable. There's Dugan setting. I thought he was going for that spear. Stark drove one into him. Dugan just sidestepped him, and look at that. He just introduced Stark to what they call air brakes. That's when you hit that post and you come to a screeching halt. Young Joe Stark has gotten a rough, rugged welcome to Mid-South Wrestling as the Louisiana champion wraps another one up.
Hacksaw Dugan with a victory. We'll be back after this important message.
This event is for one fall with a 10-minute time limit. In the blue corner at 238 pounds, from Richmond, Virginia, Buddy Landell. And at 385 pounds, managed by General Skandor Akbar, Kamala, the Ugandan warrior.
This event, popular Buddy Landell in the red tights against Kamala, the Ugandan warrior. In the ring with him is his handler and Man Friday, and alongside the General Skandor Akbar, his manager. Bill, this should really be a battle because he has no sense. He lets up on no one, as that's been proven.
That's right. You know, the match everybody wanted. The eighth wonder of the world, Andre the Giant Kamala. And Andre wanted it. You know, anytime there's a challenge to Andre, he just doesn't believe one man is a challenge. And Andre is very unhappy because he feels that with Akbar and the Man Friday's interference, he has not yet had one-on-one, but he also has not yet measured the man. He hasn't defeated this Kamala. They've had a battle. Just unbelievable. Every promoter in the country wants it. Look at this savage as he starts his ceremonial type dance. Buddy Landell, a powerful young man. Buddy Landell bench presses close to 500 pounds. That can give you some idea of the tremendous strength Landell has. This also can maybe explain to you that strength is not everything. If you don't have the wrestling skill to go with the strength and don't know the leverage and the maneuvers, you can be the strongest guy going and it just won't do you a lot of good. But Buddy Landell, I'll give him credit. He tries everybody. And he's a young man in this business. And I predict one of these days you'll see Buddy Landell being a top star. But it's an awesome thing. Look at this man, 385 pounds. He leaps. He moves around the ring, spent so many time in his homeland. We got a call in Mid-South office in Tulsa from a young lady from ORU, Oral Roberts University, that is from Uganda, and said that she knew Kamala in Uganda. Must have been an awesome individual there. And of course, the manager, Skandar Akbar, a man that's unscrupulous. He has this man on lease. We don't know who controls Kamala, and the Man Friday never says much of anything, just seems to always be there. Kamala is really dishing it out to Buddy Landell. Kamala, a big savage he is. They say that he wants Andre the Giant. There he starts with those powerful, powerful chops. Landell's smart, got out of the way using that quickness, and he's carrying the attack to Kamala, which is what he has to do. He's trying everything. He even looked like he tried to blind him. Oh! Kamala with that tremendous shoulder strength and follow-through. When you're 385 pounds, you just overpower somebody, some people with sheer mass. Then you put skill with it. There he goes. And he wipes out Buddy Landell, the count.
1, 2, 3. Kamala the Ugandan Warrior with a victory. Tony Atlas versus Kelly Kaniski coming up when we return.
This event is for one fall with a 10-minute time limit. In the red corner, at 268 pounds from Vancouver, British Columbia, Kelly Kaniski. And in the blue corner at 252 pounds from Roanoke, Virginia, Mr. USA, Tony Atlas.
Kelly Kaniski in the ring against the well-muscled, stockily built, and the strong man, Mr. USA, Tony Atlas. Bill?
Well, this could be Kelly Kaniski's toughest challenge here on Mid-South Television Wrestling. As Tony Atlas is a phenomenal athlete, 240, 250 pounds, solid muscle. Great wrestling skills also. But, you know, the big thing about Atlas is, like I tell you, he had to fight from his childhood just to survive. And that's, there's a strength that comes from just being street tough, and he's got it. The Junkyard Dog, the people that are tough, that came up hard and fought hard, wrestling too. These type of individuals, they have that inside courage and strength. Weather freezing cold here at Shreveport this evening as we're at the Irish McNeil Boys Club on the state fairgrounds. Wrestling fans are the loyalest, most loyal fans in the world. They brave the elements to see their favorites wrestle. And I'll guarantee you these athletes, they'll travel through impossible conditions to get to a town. I talked to Dick Murdoch, snowed in Amarillo. He was leaving a day early to make a booking in Atlanta, Georgia. Guys go around floods, through ice and snow. It has to be just impossible for a bout in the Mid-South area was ever canceled. Thinking back to that first match between Tim Horner and Sonny Rogers, it was a disqualification due to Sonny Rogers throwing a karate blow to the throat. There are certain things in the Mid-South area that are automatic disqualifications. If you run your opponent's head into the ring post, into the steel ring post, that's a disqualification. If you intentionally throw them over the top rope, that's a disqualification. That's a judgment call by an official, because oftentimes a guy will get caught with a drop kick and go over the top rope, and that's not being intentionally thrown over the top rope, so it's not a disqualification at that point. If you attack your man after the fall, that is a disqualification. If you hit the referee, that's an automatic disqualification. And also a karate to the throat, or to hit your opponent with a foreign object. These are all automatic disqualifications. You got a man like Tony Atlas with all that tricep power, those hard, toughened hands. When he hits you with his fist, that's worse sometimes than getting hit with a foreign object. Kelly Kaniski, a big man, played for West Texas State University over by Amarillo. Father, a world's champion. You see that I don't care what your background is, you start just like every other individual when you become a professional wrestler. You learn the hard way. And he's against one of the top men. 7'4", 485-pound Andre the Giant will be Mr. USA Tony Atlas's tag partner next week, right here on Mid-South Wrestling, in a tag title bout against DiBiase and Bourne for the Mid-South tag titles. And to say DiBiase and Bourne are upset is an understatement. But also, they've got another team that's pressing them. And I mean pressing them hard. It'll be here later on Mid-South Wrestling. Mr. Wrestling 2 and the fabulous Junkyard Dog has returned. And they have teamed up, and they have a certain scores in common to be settled with the Rat Pack. Tony Atlas firing away. This is Kelly Kaniski with a Beal. Look at that tremendous springing power in Atlas's legs. He's like a cat as he goes up some 6'4", 6'5" in the air for a flying head scissor. Another flying head says that this shows the tremendous skill level of this athlete. Oh, look at that drop kick. He went up so high, he drop kicked down on Kelly Kiniski. This can show you what tremendous, powerful explosion. There he just presses 270, 280-pound Kelly Kiniski, presses him right up and hits him with a high-flying maneuver, and he pins Kelly Kiniski.
Tremendous tactics as a winner for Tony Atlas. We'll be back. Andre the Giant versus two opponents after this message from Mid-South Wrestling.
And now a handicap tag match in which one man will be wrestling two. This event is for one fall with a 10-minute time limit. In the red corner, at 245 pounds from St. Joseph, Missouri, Mike Bond. And his partner at 242 pounds from Hollywood, California, Tom Renesto Jr. And in the blue corner, standing all alone, but very tall, the eighth wonder of the world, 7 feet 4 inches tall, 485 pounds, Andre the Giant.
2 against 1 or 1 against 2, whichever way you want it, but that one, 7 foot 4, 485 pounds from the French Alps, Grenoble, France, Andre the Giant versus Mike Bond and Tom Renesto. Bill?
Well, Boyd, like I say, generally when you have a handicap match, it means 2 against 1, but as it means tonight, but you can certainly look out there and see which team is handicapped. And I know the rules call for the outside man to have to tag legally in, but I'm sure the referee will allow these guys to try anything they want against Andre the Giant. It's just an awesome situation. You know, this man made a lot of people obsolete when he came into the wrestling business, because you've seen big, huge men before. There was Haystack Calhoun, who was 640 pounds, but he was only 6 foot 4. And there's been some big guys, but when Andre came in 7'4", 485, and he's mobile, and that's the key. He can move. I thought the greatest challenge to Andre in a single match was about 3-4 years ago was Ernie Ladd, who was 6'9", 320 against Andre. But Ernie was unable to beat him. It appears that right now, Kamala at 385 pounds with Akbar in his corner and his man Friday have given Andre the Giant his greatest challenge to date in the Mid-South area. Killer Khan once inflicted a terrible injury on Andre, caused him to have to go in the hospital. He was in the hospital in Boston, Massachusetts for a month with an ankle injury. And Andre the Giant chased Killer Khan all over the wrestling world, including Tokyo, Japan, and has beat Killer Khan into almost mincemeat. Both men at the same time in on Andre. They both come in together. Look at the contrast in size. This man wears equivalent to a size 23 cowboy boot made by Tony Lama. Just awesome. And Andre is very unhappy with the outcome of some of his matches with Kamala and said he wants to settle the issue because he doesn't like people bragging about the fact that he has not been able to beat them. And this savage Kamala with Akbar behind him, it's getting too much publicity. And Andre wants to finish it. He wants it one-on-one. And look at these two men out there. These are big men. These are good-sized men. Mike Bond is 6'5". And then look at that. Mike Bond in on a single leg. Now they're both in. They've got him. They got him down. Both men got him down. Look at Andre, though. He takes both men at the same time. They're quickly up. They see the chance to try to pin him. Both men on him. But Andre powers out. Alfred Neely barely getting out of the way. Now they're quick up. They know that they've got to move. They've got to try to keep him down while he's down. Oftentimes, big men are most vulnerable when they're off their feet. But Andre's back to his feet, and look at him. He just arm whipped them both right into each other. Now he takes Tom Ernesto Jr., sails him in. They're both in the corner, and Andre the Giant, 485 pounds, and look at the pain that he's putting on these men. Headbutt. Tom Ernesto Jr. going up off to come off the top, but Andre just walks over, and even Ernesto clear up on top of the ring post. Didn't look that much taller than Andre, and Andre just throws him right, and there he goes.
Andre the Giant from the French Alps with another tremendous victory over not one, but two opponents. We'll be back with more interesting interviews and a great tag team match after this message.
Avoid next week. Our main event on Mid-South Television Wrestling will be Tony Atlas, Mr. USA, and 7'4", 485-pound Andre the Giant against Ted DiBiase and Matt Bourne for the Mid-South Tag titles. Now, Andre has not been one to be on any championship quest. He says being the Giant is a worldwide championship because he's been in such unusual matches. Most of the time, battle royals or handicap situations. But he has a tremendous friendship for Tony Atlas. And Atlas said he's fed up with the Rat Pack because it seems like whenever you face two of them, there becomes a third with Hacksaw Duggan. We talked to Matt Bourne and Ted DiBiase earlier, and we will show you that interview now. I'm standing between the two co-holders of the Mid-South Tag Team Championship. And next week, right here on Mid-South Wrestling, they have formidable, to say the least, opponents that they're going to defend the Mid-South Tag titles against. None other than the world's strongest man, Mr. USA Tony Atlas, but he will be teamed with the eighth wonder of the world, 7'4", 485-pound Andre the Giant.
That's a raw deal in itself, but before I get to that, Bill Watts, I got something I want to say that has just seemed to drop out of the picture. 2 weeks in a row, Stagger Lee was supposed to defend the North American title against me right here in this ring and failed to show up. By failing to show up, he therefore forfeits the match. By forfeiting the match, he therefore forfeits the North American title. I want my belt. I am the North American champion. I should have been all the time, and I should have it now by forfeiture. And on top of that, Junkyard Dog has started a nasty rumor that I squealed to Stagger Lee's probation officer, causing him to be put back in prison, and he's serving time again. Now, that's the biggest lie I've ever heard. The lie is that there is no Stagger Lee. Stagger Lee is, in fact, the Junkyard Dog, and all you people know that. This is just a big runaround so he can protect himself. Now, on top of all of that, Mid-South is trying to get rid of us. Can you imagine? It's not bad enough. Yeah, we're the Mid-South Tag Team title holders, and everybody can't stand it. Well, that's tough. So now Mid-South is going to go get the strongest man in wrestling, Tony Atlas, and put him with the biggest man that ever walked anywhere, Andre the Giant. Now, if that's not trying to get rid of us, I don't know what is, Bill Watts. But something's going to be done about it, and we'll hang on any way we have to.
All these people out here, Bill Watts, we know that we are the best champions that this Mid-South's ever had, and after we beat them next week, somehow,
we know what we got to do to keep it.
There's going to be no doubt
We'll see it
about
next week. You know, there's a lot of pride and a lot of jealousy among greats in any sport, and oftentimes two superstars don't gel. But we have two superstars that have become legends in their own time. One, Mr. Wrestling 2 from Atlanta, who has come in to dominate the Mid-South, and that other superstar, that man who carries the Mid-South banner wherever he goes, who's been crowned the king of wrestling in Houston, the Junkyard Dog. And these two men teamed together are awesome, and that chemistry does gel. Let's go to Reeser Bowden.
And it's tag team action now for one fall with a 10-minute time limit. In the red corner, at 250 pounds from Rome, Georgia, Marty Lundy. And his partner at 280 pounds from Pampa, Texas, Don Bass. And in the blue corner at 270 pounds from Tennessee, the Junkyard Dog.
Before this match starts, we want to buy the contract. We're going to buy your contract and wrestle these guys and show all you people right here, right now today, who the look, we'll pay for the contract. We'll buy the contract. You guys just go on. We'll take this match, and we'll take these guys right now here today on television. But,
This is a good chance for us.
look, wait a minute. Wait a minute.
Well, negotiations get underway. At any rate, at 236 pounds from Atlanta, Georgia, the Junkyard Dog's partner, Mr. Wrestling 2. And now we'll just have to see who they will wrestle.
Well, some kind of a negotiation going on out there, Boyd. DiBiase and Matt Bourne attempting to buy Lundy and Bass's contract against the Junkyard Dog and Mr. Wrestling 2. Apparently they've reached some kind of a negotiated settlement.
Well, it looks like Ted DiBiase and Matt Bourne have bought that contract to engage in this match.
Junkyard Dog and Wrestling 2 back to back, waiting for him to come from both sides, trying to form up that Alamo-type resistance right in the middle and make them come to them, and they've got them. And Ted DiBiase and Matt Bourne have just taken on one of the most awesome teams in the Mid-South area, Mr. Wrestling 2 and the Junkyard Dog, and they may have bit off more than they can chew. DiBiase and Bourne trying to use some of the same maneuvers. There they go. There comes Marty Lundy and Don Bass back in on the action from behind on the Junkyard Dog. Mr. 2, it's now 4-on-2. You talk about a real handicap going down right here now, Boyd Pierce. A lot of action. The referee doesn't know who's in officially or who isn't. Look at Wrestling 2. Slam Matt Bourne clear off the top. The Junkyard Dog blocked Ted DiBiase as he loaded that glove and attempted to hit him and then ran his hand in. The Junkyard Dog and Wrestling 2 are whipping two teams. The referee counted down one man, and now the Dog gives a thump to Marty Lundy, and you can see him hit Marty Lundy. You got your chance, and so did DiBiase and Bourne. They just whipped two, and the crowd's going 2-2-2. They rock to the Dog's music and react to Wrestling 2.
A double victory with both men the winners, and we'll be back with more action after this word from Mid-South Wrestling Television Network.
This event is for one fall or remaining television time. In the red corner at 250 pounds from Topeka, Kansas, Art Cruz. And in the blue corner at 278 pounds from Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, Iron Mike Sharp.
Art Cruz from the Midwest in Kansas versus north of the border, the Canadian strongman, Iron Mike Sharp. Alfred Neely calls for the bell.
great match. Art Cruz is a rookie in professional wrestling, but he's a good athlete, good amateur background. Mike Sharp, big rugged guy from Canada. Not a lot of amateur wrestling background, but he's strong. He learned fast. He boxed some pro. Canada doesn't have the amateur wrestling program as in-depth as it is in the States, and almost all the Canadian wrestling is freestyle, which is the Olympic style of wrestling, and Greco-Roman. One man that's adapted tremendously well to American collegiate wrestling is Big John Tinta, the 350-pound heavyweight at Louisiana State University under Coach Larry Shakatana and Lanny Davidson. Fine team, LSU, been really come up this year in the ratings. Enjoyed watching them against Oklahoma University. Coach Stan Abel's team, led by Mark Schultz, a two-time NCAA national champion and outstanding wrestler of last year's tournament at 177 pounds. And of course, Oklahoma State under Tommy Chesborough. Powerful team, led by 400-pound Mitch Shelton at heavyweight. And Kenny Mundy, tremendous athlete at 150. And my personal friend and kid that I watched grow up and take 3 state titles in Oklahoma before going to college, Leonard Bailey. Art Cruz and Mike Sharp here. Time limit remaining. Next week, the tremendous main event for the Mid-South Tag Team titles. Andre the Giant and Mr. USA Tony Atlas against Ted DiBiase and Matt Bourne. In 2 weeks, we hope to have for you Kerry Von Erich's match with Ric Flair as what caused the problem with he and Michael Hayes. Good moves out there. Clean, scientific bout. If we have time, if there's a decision in this match, we do have an interview that we pre-taped with Andre and Tony Atlas concerning next week's battle. This is one fall or television time remaining. 5 minutes of television time remaining. Alfred Neely in there, full Nelson. He dropped through, quickly kicked off of Iron Mike Sharp. This young man, Art Cruz, has got the tenacity, apparently. He's in the gymnasium, he's training hard, he's taking some tough bouts, but he really wants it. Desire is a big factor. You can teach him all the skills and show them the gymnasium. What you can't teach them is desire. They have to develop that on their own, and that's what separates the men from the boys, is desire, the intensity. Mike Sharp using that tremendous strength and his size. The Moondogs from Atlanta been invading the Mid-South area. Of course, the Iron Sheik occasionally in. Captain Redneck, Dick Murdoch, in and out. Lots of excitement for 1983. The Superdome, the next big Superdome. Oh, waistlock. Art Cruz waistlocked at Mike Sharp and took him right to the mat, but Mike fights off that back. He knows how dangerous that is. 4 minutes of television time remaining. The next Superdome extravaganza will be Saturday night, April the 16th. Also, the North American Championship, a very clouded situation. A situation that is, in all the years that I've been associated with Mid-South and the North American Championship, I have never heard of, where it's been sent back in the mail to Grizzly Smith. And maybe that gives some credence to Ted DiBiase's claims. But Charlie Lay and the board of directors of Mid-South will have to make a decision. We'll try to have further on that development next week here on Mid-South Wrestling, because one thing's for sure, that title is too prestigious, too valuable to be in limbo. Too many people want it. Hacksaw did it, also pushing promoter Paul Bosch to bid for and hold a tournament in Houston, Texas for the Brass Knucks Trophy, and I'm all for it. It's a unique type of individual it takes to be a Brass Knucks champion. Quick action out here. Clothesline. Iron Mike just met him with an iron clothesline, and you've got a quick 1, 2, 3. That's all it takes, Boyd Pierce, is 3 seconds between victory and defeat, and you just saw Iron Mike Sharp claim another victory. And of course, Mike Sharp has had some tough opponents recently. The one that's very formidable, the one that's the talk of the wrestling world, Kamala, the Ugandan warrior. And next week, right here on Mid-South Wrestling, though, we have a dynamite event for you. We have Tony Atlas and Andre the Giant against DiBiase and Bourne. Let's listen to Tony Atlas and Andre the Giant. I'm standing here between the team that will go for the Mid-South Tag Team titles next week right here on television. The most formidable team I've ever seen. Certainly the one that DiBiase and Bourne are worrying about right now. 7'4", 485-pound Andre the Giant.
Thank you. And I'm very happy to be there. And I always said I don't want to be a champion. But when Tony Atlas asked me to be a team-up with him to go for the Mid-South Tag Team Championship, I was happy to sign that contract because I'm a good friend with Tony, and I'm going to do all my best. And I know those guys are the best because they're the champion, but they have to prove it. Who is the best, our team or their team?
Well, Tony, it looks like you may have set an ambush.
Yes, sir. You know that Rat Pack, every time you get a tag team partner, there's always one of them comes slipping out. If you wrestling Matt Bourne or Ted DiBiase, that Dugan comes slipping out. If you wrestle Dugan and Ted DiBiase, however, it be one slip out. But I got Andre the Giant here. He be just as big and just as powerful as Foreman. And together, we're going to get the job done.
Next week, right here on Mid-South. Well, Boyd Pierce, next week, I know everybody will want to be in their chairs early for Mid-South. We appreciate you inviting us into your living rooms again today. Again, Stagger Lee has disappeared. The North American title has been sent back to Grizzly Smith. That will be answered. Possibly next week we'll have some answers, but we will have a fantastic tag team battle.
It has to be a battle. The championship will be on the line in a sanctioned match. Mr. USA Tony Atlas and his partner, H1 to the world, Andre the Giant, versus the champions Ted DiBiase and Matt Bourne. Until next week, for our guest commentator, Bill Watts, I'm your host, Boyd Pierce, and thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, for watching us. You're the reason the ratings are so strong. You're the reason that matchmaker Grizzly Smith can spend the money to bring them to you. Thanks for watching, and good evening.